What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now, Back to the Past. I'm Alex, and in this video, I thought we would take a trip down memory lane to look at the Fast and Furious game franchise. Now, I'm all about the movies. They're not even necessarily a guilty pleasure. They're just actually, in my opinion, very, very good movies. You know, obviously, people look at Fast 5 as being one of, if not the best. I actually really love The Fate of the Furious, some of the later ones. Not 9, but, 6 is actually my personal favorite. So I'm a big fan of the franchise. I know it's all over the top, and sometimes they take themselves seriously, sometimes they don't. But I genuinely, and it's not made up literally at all, I love the film franchise so much. And it actually makes me very, very upset when I think of, okay, have we ever really gotten a good Fast and Furious game? Well, the answer might be yes. You look back in the record books, and the 2006 game, which we'll go through in this video, that game was received relatively well, kind of across the board. You can watch it right now, like on YouTube. Looks good. People say how fun it is. It sold really well. It got pretty good review scores as well at the time. In fact, I think it is the highest reviewed Fast and Furious game of all time. Now, I don't necessarily go based off review scores, but you look at the review scores for some of the later games, and oh boy, do they completely fall apart. So you could argue there was maybe one good one. Some people have a soft spot for Showdown. A lot of them are mobile games. There's only ever been 9 Fast and Furious games ever. And they've had collaborations before, like Forza has had the collaboration. But in terms of Fast and Furious kind of, having its own thing, I believe 9 is the number we're at. We really do need to get to 10 if we're being honest with ourselves. But the issue is the last couple have obviously not been so good. So I feel like that probably scares you off doing more in the future. But I think it works. I mean, you look at all the other racing games that have come out, even over the last 5-6 years. There's a place for family first and foremost.
I don't have friends. I got family.
But also, I genuinely think Fast and Furious works as a racing game, open world as well. I mean, and you don't even have to use the characters from the movie. In fact, as they started to do that more and more, see the 2006 one, not so much. It was inspired by Tokyo Drift, but it really, you look at Showdown, obviously look at Crossroads with our good old pal Vin Diesel, and that was, obviously they're trying to put those characters in. You get phoned in performances, all that stuff. That doesn't really help the game, or at least it hasn't helped this franchise. So hopefully one day we get the 10th, we finish that nice solid number, and we get just a really good Fast and Furious open world game, because I do think we deserve it. But that's in the future, maybe a future that's never going to happen. Let's look in the past, and let's look at some of these really, really bad ones. So we'll start with really the only good one, because I do want to start to tear them apart in some of the later entries. So let's start with that 2006 one. Now, for clarification's sake, I've never played it, so we're going to be crediting the people that we watched the clips of. The game looks really good, and you can read the comments of people doing long play videos of the game, and there's a lot of nostalgia there. There's a lot of people talking about that was their childhood, that was the only good Fast and Furious game. A lot of comments also on how it felt. Now, it's hard to judge feeling based on watching videos. That's definitely fair, but the atmosphere of what you can see, I think, is actually extremely good for 2006. Even what you see on screen from car metrics, let's say, those are extremely good. I think the environment honestly looks extremely good. And one thing that really stood out to me was also the sound, the engine, when it kind of kicks it up a gear. I think it honestly sounds fantastic, and I think that's backed up from the comments. I think a lot of people have really good experience with this. And again, this was, it kind of should have been the best one if you think about it, because it was the first main one. Before this, you had canceled projects. There was actually, I think it's from the same developer that made the 2006, and I believe this game is just called The Fast and the Furious. There was a game before it that was actually canceled that I think was going to be based off of the original movie. This game is more influenced by Tokyo Drift than it is, the first one. So, whatever happens to that first game, we will never know. But really, besides this game, for a little while, it was mobile stuff. It was, that's actually kind of all it was. Mobile and then arcade, kind of arcade machines. So this was the first attempt to make a, console, actually a huge Fast and Furious game. And by all metrics of sales, of, performance, of everything, the game seemed to do really, really well. Now, the issue when you look at the history books here is it was never really followed up, ever. Technically, yes, but it was followed up too late. So that was 2006. Now, again, before it, you did have some games, but then after it, they tried to just do tie-ins. So they literally had a Fast 5 game, they had a Fast 6 game, but these were all mobile games, and none of them, I think, performed very well. They had to perform at least well enough to get the next one, I suppose, but I don't think they lit the world up on fire. Also, you think of like those late 2000s, early 2010 mobile games. It wasn't the cream of the crop, right? And ultimately, you never had that really big console follow-up that you probably needed to do. So you were met with some mediocrity, and a lot of these games, again, didn't crack maybe like 60 across the board from like ratings anywhere. But then we get to the next big one, which was Showdown. And this actually surprised me because, well, it surprised me in multiple ways. Number one, I do remember this game. I don't actually remember how long I've been in to the Fast and Furious franchise, but it's probably, 10, 11, 12 years. So 2013, I would have been a fan. I wasn't super on the internet, but I 1000% remember this game existing. I remember the box art for this game. IGN still actually has a review of this game all these years later. But this game, well, and also I guess what surprised me is this game actually isn't all that old. But then when you watch it, holy dear Jesus, this game looks atrocious. Now, to be fair, number one, I guess, again, I have not played this game. Number two, the comments, they're definitely more split, so I'd like to take them with a grain of salt. There are some people that talk about this game as maybe their own guilty pleasure, or, okay, it somewhat does it well, but in other ways it doesn't. See, the 2006 one, again, regarded as the best for the look, the feel, how the cars actually felt, the customization, just everything. I mean, everything in that game seemingly was extremely good. Showdown, now this takes place in between 5 and 6. Now, I tried to watch a good amount of this before I made this video. Holy dear God. Now, the character models in the cutscenes are not atrocious, but they're not great, again, for being 2013. You also have the voice acting, which, well, this is, I don't know. Like, Crossroads is so bad. We're going to get there. So, like, when I listen to Showdown, I don't know which one is worse. I feel like they're almost on equal footing, and that probably makes Crossroads worse, right? Because that game came out so many years later. We were really done with these movie tie-ins, which I do want to throw that topic out in this video as well. Can we please stop? Can we please stop with the movie tie-ins? But this is no good. This really is no good. I also found a nice little clip of them calling Han, which I always love. You have that even with like Star Wars. When you have a character name, okay, can you please be just synchronized? Can everybody call the character name the same way? You don't have to call him a different, like somebody has a different kind of slang for that word. You don't need to do that. Just call him by his name. So that was really funny. And then also the in-game, like the gameplay. Again, I can't judge the feel, and well, by the looks of it, it doesn't look very good, but I can judge some of the animations and how some things look and how some things react, and no, absolutely not. In fact, again, there's one clip where Han puts his head out of the car where he's shooting, and it looks as if he's like a cardboard, like, I don't know, like you have from like a band, like a One Direction kind of thing. My sister had that growing up, sorry. And it's like that, being stuck out of your car. It just looks so bad. So, again, like what's surprising is I remember this game. I never dabbled in it, but I also didn't know, like, the years don't match to me. It doesn't, it's not that old. I mean, just flat out, it's not that old. But that game looks like it was maybe created before the 2006 one. So this is, I mean, I would say from going in like the gaming history background of my mind, this was, I would say, right at the end of that era of the movie tie-ins. Now, I would love if Fast and Furious killed it. I mean, again, I have so much love for the movies, but if Fast and Furious as a franchise wanted to be the thing to murder these crossover, tie-in things forever, I think that would be a huge achievement, honestly, for the franchise. I don't know what actually did it, but obviously, again, you had really from the mid-2000s, maybe 2004, 5, 6, from that point on, you had just so many of these tie-ins, and a lot of them were absolute garbage, and I would probably throw Showdown into that. Now, you had some good ones. Star Wars, I brought this up actually in the tier list video I made a little while ago. The Star Wars Episode 3 game that came out with the movie, it actually came out before the movie. That is not only one of the best Star Wars games of all time, but I feel like it's got to be one of, if not the best movie tie-in. I mean, it's literally doing the movie, so, I mean, I guess it's a movie tie-in. I don't know how you want to define it, but but it is so good. And so you did have some, but for the majority, they're never good. Now, this really does bring us to Crossroads, which I definitely have the best recollection, probably the most to say about Crossroads. So let's get into that. But one thing I want to talk about with that tie-in kind of approach is I don't know why it came back. And maybe we'll make a whole video on this channel about, movie tie-in games, because they did go away. And I think they went away largely. Maybe they were still around, here and there. But I think really from maybe that 2014-15 period all the way till maybe like 18, 19. Now, I guess in reality, was it only like 3, 4, 5 years? It really wasn't too long that we stopped. But a thing that always confused me is we all always knew these games were bad, right? They never even sold all that well. Like these movie tie-in things, they never sold, and also they were just critically destroyed. And also from fandoms, they were critically destroyed. They're lazy. They're oftentimes from people that are maybe first-time game developers, which they're just kind of getting into their own and they're thrown these kind of projects. They're also given extremely little time to make the game. Now, this is going to come up actually with Crossroads. So they went away for a long time, and then they started to come back. Like we had that Jumanji game, which I think was around the second movie. I don't think it came out with the first one, so it took a little bit to come back. And then we had Crossroads. So, all right, let's get into the history with this game. So I remember it like it was yesterday with the Game Awards, and Jeff Keighley. So Jeff Keighley, I believe, was teasing going into this thing that, you want to stay for the ending. Like the ending was going to be big. Also, in any show, any gaming event, the beginning is important. Well, actually, anything. The beginning is always important and the ending is always important, right? You want to make a statement at the end, maybe to have them come back the following year, but also just end on a bang. And the beginning, you need the hook, right, to get them in. It's the same for anything. So the ending obviously is very, very important. And, you're hyping it up. And then I don't remember if it was announced that Vin Diesel was going to be there, but I remember watching, and I was in Las Vegas at the time. I remember watching this, and I remember Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez as well, but good old Vin Diesel just walking out on stage and saying, all right, this is the game that you are ending your show on. And I remember during the show, it was all building. Well, I mean, I guess in retrospect, he always does that, right? Through any show, you're always teasing, what's to come. You're teasing, this gigantic ending. Can you, believe now, looking back, that he ended a Game Awards on a Fast and Furious video game? Now, I guess at the time, it's we're all in. Because there's no guarantee these games, they don't have to be bad. They could be good. But honestly, the odds are stacked against it. So watching the trailer live, seeing Vin Diesel, I was blown away in really all ways humanly possible. I kind of couldn't believe that that's how you chose to end it. And also, the warning signs were absolutely there. Any sense of excitement that I had for this game, I think I had a little. I covered it a few times actually on the main channel. There was always, well, I do think this game is going to be really, really bad. And then the more that you saw from it, it was, okay, yeah, this game's not looking so great. I believe the behind-the-scenes stuff is this was a studio that was relatively new, not extremely talented. Is that okay to say, modern day, calling people that? But I think that's fair. And also, they were given extremely little time to make the game. I think under a year. So, well, that obviously is just a recipe for failure right there. But again, that is historically. Now, I really would like to know about Revenge of the Sith because I want to know how long they had. Because it does seem like for a lot of these movie tie-in games, you're given a year or less. So you're basically put into the EA Sports group where it's okay, you literally have a 9-month turnaround from one game to the next to make the game. But they start with something, right? So every EA Sports game starts with the game before, and you just have to kind of add as much as humanly possible, or not, I suppose. But you add as much for the next one. For these games, what do you start with? You really probably, I imagine, you don't start with much. And when you're doing a action. I mean, is it action adventure? Is that what you? I mean, I guess you would call it a racing game, but high octane chases. You also want to have a story mode. You have an online mode, right? So Crossroads tried to do like everything. So you have a story. You have literal characters from the movie being into the game. So I mean, you might get phoned in performances, but you're gonna have that synergy, that cross promotion, and you're also gonna have the multiplayer. So longevity, right? Keep the game going. That way, if the story isn't so good, I mean, what would make it not so good, right? But if it's not so good, you could have the multiplayer to kind of fall back on. Well, the game obviously did not really get that much excitement, I think, from like the larger sphere of people. Game came out and it was absolutely obliterated. Now, I was so on the fence of buying this game. I think nowadays I would buy a game like this just for content purposes, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. It was delayed because it was supposed to come out during the Stuff Around the World, and they pushed it a couple months. So it came out a little later than it was supposed to. Maybe it gave them more time to kind of, work on it. And I remember watching the cutscenes and the story side of things. So one thing you'll notice immediately is just how horrible literally everything is. Now, I mean, to be honest with you, not only are the performances from the cast, which again, like, you can like or hate Vin Diesel. I love Vin Diesel, okay? And I think Dom is a fantastic character. And I think I really think Vin Diesel does more with that character than some people give him credit for, okay? Let me just throw it out there. But not only are those phoned in performances, but they added some new characters into this game that are some of the worst voiced over characters I've ever heard in my goddamn life. And it makes me, again, why does it need to be Fast and Furious? People are already divided over the movies, and there's already all this stuff that's going on. Why do you also need to just have some of the worst movie tie-in games humanly possible? Again, this should work. This should work. You should be able to do something like this. Even if you did a straight ripoff of a Fast and Furious movie as a game, you should still be able to do it. With, I guess, enough time, which maybe they don't give these developers, but it is atrocious how bad some of the voice acting is. Let's listen to some of it.
No, I pushed. I have a habit of doing that. Cam, honey, this is all on me.
They put you in cuffs?
You set us up! Where are we?
Now, wait a second.
Did you cut a deal with Interpol? Are you their informant now? I am never forgiving you for this.
When in doubt, do what I do.
I've seen what you do. That's why I'm kind of terrified.
We'll have eyes on you the whole time.
Kicking back with drinks while you watch me splatter my brains all over the place. Yeah, I feel better already.
Maybe you've been undercover so long you've forgotten who you are.
So once you're done with the fantastic story, you then get to the multiplayer. Now, the issue with the multiplayer is no one played it. I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll make it like a safe number. I believe the first day that this game came out, there were under 10 people playing online. Now, I want to say 4 or 5 people played it, but I don't know the exact number, so to be safe, let's say under 10. I also believe, I think like Angry Joe was playing it and was literally looking for people online. And that's how I kind of remember the number. I remember him trying to play it online, and there were maybe 2 other people online besides him. So you couldn't even get a full team, basically, because I think you needed more than that to play an online match. So you literally couldn't play a full online match with people. Now, that's not necessarily the game's fault. Well, I mean, in some ways it is. It's not fully the game's fault. If you don't have players, if you need the full group, maybe it's more fun to play it. But widely, this game was trash, and widely, this game was completely thrown aside by like everybody on planet Earth. I just can't. I love Jeff Keighley, okay? And I love what he brings to the gaming industry, and I give him a hard time sometimes. Not that he ever cares what I think specifically, or really what anybody thinks of him, but he's made some atrocious mistakes before in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways he's done it is by literally letting this game, like a game like this, you look at its end result and how bad this game was, and then you go back and you say he had that close his epic once-a-year show is insane. It's absolutely insane because you can kind of see it coming. And so again, we're back to when can we get, a good one of these games. Now again, in celebration of Fast 10, I thought this would be fun to look back at some of them, but it sucks that you have to look back and you have to say, okay, they're either mobile games, largely mobile movie tie-in games, or you get one good one, and it's so old at this point. Well, it would be 17 years old, so that's a long time ago. Maybe we can get a remake of it. Or then you get some of the more recent ones that are complete garbage. And one of them I lived real time. Remember it like it was yesterday. I want a good Fast and Furious game. I don't know what I would have to do to get it. I know I've talked about kind of my life dream if I was ever given a very large sum of money, which maybe one day happens. I would make a Scream game. I think Scream deserves a story-based single-player game. I think I could do it. I think I'd want to do it. So that'd be my number one. I don't think about doing like a Fast and Furious thing, but if somebody can save the Fast and Furious gaming franchise, I do believe it could be me. So, if you want to start a GoFundMe or something, I would definitely participate in it, I guess giving it to myself. No, I want it. I really want a good Fast and Furious game. I don't think we're going to get one. Again, with 10 coming out, and then with 10 Part 2, in a couple years, and there could be a third one, but maybe not. Ultimately, this is almost over. And there'll still be spin-offs, and Fast and Furious will always live on because, again, family never dies, and family is the most important. I don't think the games, I think they just missed their timing. And they spent most of their time making mobile games. So I really don't know. You have, Need for Speed, you have all this stuff. I don't know why there weren't more attempts to do single-player games. Probably because it's a license, and maybe you have to, you do have to pay for it. I don't know how much you have to pay for it, so maybe that scared people off. I don't know the reasoning. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm going to go enjoy Fast 10, and I hope I do. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you're subscribed, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.